Sham Sharadava Nalalida Luka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Samsaradava Nalalida Luka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasa Kalyana Gurnanavasa Vande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Praptasa Kalyana Gurnanavasa Vande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Charanaravrindam Vande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu Kirtananita Gita Varitramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu Kirtananita Gita Varitramadhyam Manasurasena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhaju Vande Guru Shri Charanaravi Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhaju Vande Guru Shri Charanaravi Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratan Mandira Majanado Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratan Mandira Majanado Jukta Savaktam Sa Neyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindu Jukta Savaktam Sa Neyunjatapi Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasadu Satvana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasadu Kridvaiva Tripte Bhajato Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shirarikama Davayorapara Madhura Lila Gunarupanamna Pratikshana Dhanalopasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Ne kunjayuno ratikelisidai Jayali bhir yukte apekshaniya Ratikelisidai Jayali Tatrati daksha ativalavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Sakcha dharitena Shamasta Shastre ruktastatthava vyataiva sarve. Kintu praborja priya eva tasya vande gurashi charanarvindam. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada Yasya prasadam nagati kutapi. Yasya prasada Yasya prasadam Dayam stuvam tasya yasatrin sanjam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam. Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam. Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam. Vande Guru Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine. Oh Vishnu Krishna Prestaya Tale Srimati Bhakti Swami Nitina. Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachata Deshata Rine. Namaste Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachata Deshata. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari. Oh, Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Chaitanya Nityananda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Bo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hariyaraya Nama, Krishna Jadavaya Nama, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama, Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattara Guna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shish Radha Nila Madhava, Radha Nila Madhava Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Subhadrama. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Jai Mr. Paramsa Prabhupada Kacharya Sutra Srishya Maharaj Divine Grace. Avatar Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapakachara Vaishnava Siramani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Guru Guru Varga Patitu Dhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatra Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Premanama Sankirtane Kajanaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinanda Nishman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahaprana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Yoga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihap Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagupna Radha Kund Samakunda Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabim Vrindavan Mathura Ki Jai The Lordship Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakra Dham Ki Jai श्री श्री परम करुणा गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। श्री राम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कनिष्ठ हरे भगवान की जय। जय गंगा माय जमुना माय की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्रीमती राधा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। Nitai Gauri Pramanandi Hari. All glories to the Assembly bodies. All glories to the Assembly bodies. All glories to the Assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gaurang.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladadayine Praladadayine Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Shilatankanakalaye Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha Yato yato yami tato Narasimha Bahir Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha Narasimhamadim charanam prapate Tava kara kamalavare nakam adbhuta shringam dalita hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Narahare Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jayo Narasimhadev, Jayo Narasimhadev, Jayo Narasimhadev, Jayo Narasimhadev. जयो प्रहलाद महाराज, जयो प्रहलाद महाराज, जयो प्रहलाद महाराज, जयो प्रहलाद महाराज। जयो जयो प्रभुपाद, 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 जयो जयो प्रभुपाद। जयो जयो गुरुदेव, 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 जयो जयो गुरुदेव। बोलो भक्त विघ्न विनाशक नरसिंहदेव भगवान की, भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की, शिला प्रभुपाद की, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे।
જેતો મારા શરણના લો તારા પંચપુરાના હો दासी दीना कृष्णा दासी कोई जीना मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः यानी कानी च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani,
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda
Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai.
Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me on my servant. His very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha Govinda Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. Cheto Darpana Madhanam Bhava Madhava Nirapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhuvanam Ananda Mudivardhanam Sadiparam Purnamrita Swadanam Savatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Vagdani Saraswati Chatrapitanim Tasmani Nakala
Etadusita Vipavamamati Durdavam Samhajana Anuraga Etadnijani Chena Tarurapisa Hishna Amanina Manadina
Vishame Bhavambuddha Kripaya Tarupada Pankajasti Taduri Tadrisham Vijinti Nanam Varashunaya Varanam Mududaya Gira Pulaka Chitam Vakudana Savanam Gane Vavisati Juvaitam Nimishena Chaktusha Prabhusayatam Sugaitam Jagatsama Govinda
Adashanam Mahato Karotu Va Yata Tata Vavida Tulam Pato Mat Prananatas Tusaiva Naparaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharani Devi Sesa Shri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to the living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of your kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate to have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling this separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Sri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali. Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Pucharini Nirvisesa Sunyavadi. Paskatya Desatani. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganyate Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurvintam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachikamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaguna Lalita Shri Visakha Nivitamsa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Vani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shivarsavanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujjvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhakti Da Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Shakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Baba Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurachuse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Chakatate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Surator Bangur Mama Mandamater Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Drindaranya Kalpadumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devos Prestali Bihi Savyamanos Marami Shiman Rasa Rasa Rambi Ramsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanus Tute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakata Satma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vrite Susurabir Abhipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kala Sadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vritti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiranjaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayo Ratapi Manaso Muni Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagadanda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktarya Meva Nikama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Pratibhavitabis Dabirya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sade Hirayesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukhalani Amenatistan Nana Makarod Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamam Yo Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Pavato Jagadanda Koti Koti Svasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Visaya Veda Visaya Yamana Sadva Volambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Mataya Manasu Ya Praninam Patifalam Smarutam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Golokanamni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sutesu Tesu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vihitaschayena Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shristi Stati Pralayasada Vasakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichanu Rupam Apiyasya Chachesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Etu Yasambutam Apitata Samapaitikar Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Deepachareva Hitasantanam Abhyapetya Deepayate Rivita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadvigeva Hicha Vishnu Tamibhyati Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narnava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasitakala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanata Vishnur Mahansahi Yasya Kala Vishesho Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Basman Yatasma Sakalesu Nijesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitad Vadatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Pala Viyugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahi Gaganamam Bhumarudisascha Kalastatatma Manasitti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschaksuresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichayastutayasta Pamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Tayasta Jiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Bhavava Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhan Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintucha Bhakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsa Mohum Gurugora Vasevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrusim Tanamapurete Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shriyak Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Duma Bhumis Chintamani Ganamai Toyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriya Saki Chidanandam Jyoti Param Apitad Aswadya Apicha Sayatra Siradi Bihi Swavati Surabhyabhyas Sumahan Nime Sardakyo Vavrajati Nahiyatra Pisamaya Bhaje Svetadvipam Tamaham Ihagolokamitiyam Vidantaste Santakshati Viralachara Katipaye Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Brahmasamhita Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, verse number 40. Prajapati Dharmapati Ekada Niyamam Yamam Bhadram Prajanam Anvichan Atistat Swartakam Yaya. Prajapati, the forefather of all living entities. Dharmapati, the father of religious life. Ekada, once upon a time. Niyaman, rules and regulations. Yaman, principles of control. Bhadram, welfare. Prajanam, of the living beings. Anvichan, desiring. Atistat, situated. Swarta, own interest. Kamyaya, so desiring. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma, situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One cannot be situated in an exalted position without having undertaken a regulative life of rules and regulations. An unrestricted life of sense gratification is animal life. And Lord Brahma, in order to teach all concerned within the jurisdiction of his generations, taught the same principles of sense control for executing higher duties. He desired the welfare of all as servants of God, and anyone desiring the welfare of the members of his family and generations must conduct a moral religious life. The highest life of moral principles is to become a devotee of the Lord, because a pure devotee of the Lord has all the good qualities of the Lord. On the other hand, one who is not a devotee of the Lord, however qualified he may be in the mundane sense of the term, cannot be qualified with any good quality worthy of the name. The pure devotees of the Lord, like Brahma and persons in the chain of disciplic succession, do not do anything to instruct their subordinates without acting accordingly themselves. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma, situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. Go to Premanandi, Haribol, Haribol. So spiritual life begins with the Varnashram Dharma system. In other words, there's two parts to it. They're the Varnas and the Dharmas. In other words, Varnas are the social delineations of society, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, and the ashrama system, which is brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So these are what are called reformatory levels of life. Why use the word reformatory? Because all of us have deviated from serving Krishna to serving ourselves. Therefore, we're put into the material world when we lose the desire to serve Krishna, and we just desire to serve ourselves and the expansion of ourselves in terms of family, ethnicity, race, nationality, etc. So, in order to go back to our original nature of being eternal servants of Krishna, we need to be regulated in our functions in society, and we have natural tendencies for service. Everybody's a servant, by the way. If you have nobody to serve, then you get a dog or a cat, you serve them. But service is the, let's say, quintessential quality of a person. The President of the United States is serving the people, the citizens, and he begs for them to vote for him so he can serve them. Right? And the husband is serving the wife and the children. The wife is serving the children and the husband. The children are serving their parents. So the husband goes to work and he's serving his team leader, or he's serving the VP, or he's serving the president or the CEO of the company. So everybody is serving somebody, because service is what defines who we are. Now, the highest definition of service is Sanatana Dharma. Dharma means occupational duties. So the four varnas and the four ashramas are occupational duties. However, there is what's called Sanatana Dharma, and that is when we decide, after experiencing regulative principles in the Varnashram Dharma system, to only serve Krishna. At that point, we are free of all dualities, because we have one goal in life, and that is to serve Guru and Krishna. The Guru is a manifestation of Krishna's mercy. So the ultimate thing is serving Krishna. So when we decide to serve Krishna rather than our own personal desires, or hankerings, or lusty feelings, then we become free of duality. And also, we attain peace, and we are personally protected by Krishna himself. So there's a tremendous advantage if one decides to uniquely serve Krishna. That doesn't mean you ignore your family or your other duties in life, but all the results of activity are offered to Krishna through this bona fide spiritual master or masters like Shiksha and Diksha gurus. And as we explained before, he goes up to Krishna through the parampara, and then Krishna's mercy comes down through the parampara to us. So, in this verse, it says that once upon a time, the forefather of living beings and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma. Now, why does he say he's the father of religiousness? Because he is the real paradigm of the process of a devotee, the process that helps a devotee become a genuine servant of Krishna. When Brahma was born, he was not born, he was the mental creation of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So when he's born before the material creation takes place. And why was he born? Because in his previous life, although he was a very pious person, he still had the material desire to dominate material nature. But he was not a hardcore karmi or a materialist. He was a very pious person, but he had this desire to dominate an entire universe. So that's why he was reborn again. If he had no desire at all, he simply desired to please Krishna, he would not have been born again, he would have gone back to Godhead. But because he had many pure desires, but he had this one desire to dominate, so he had to take birth again. So when he takes birth, the material creation hasn't taken place yet, so he gets confused. And he begins to really ardently try and understand what his position is and what his purpose in life is and who engendered him, and all these questions are in his mind. And at that point he hears two syllables, ta-pa. Those are two consonants in the Sanskrit alphabet. And he understands what it means because he already is coming from a previous life, from many previous lives, right? So he understands what tapa means. It means austerity. And he takes that sound vibration, tapa, that he hears as coming from Krishna, because he had a prior experience in previous lives. And although he can't see Krishna, but he hears Krishna say tapa, then he understands that he should engage in voluntary austerity in order to understand what his purpose in life is. So he begins to meditate. And at a certain point, after actually hundreds and thousands of years, celestial years, and that's an extremely long period of time, right? So his tapasya, his meditative tapasya, was very, very severe and for an extremely long time. And then he eventually hears the flute of Krishna. And when he hears the flute of Krishna, his mind becomes enlightened with knowledge of Krishna, who eventually appears in front of him. And then Krishna shows him Vaikuntha, glimpses of Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. And now he begins to understand what his purpose in life is. That is, he should become a secondary creator of the material universe. But his creation is not creating the universe itself. It's populating the universe with populations of all the different 8,400,000 species. He becomes the primary progenitor, or Prajapati, and then he engenders sons and daughters, and those sons become secondary Prajapatis, or producers of different races and different species and so forth. And so he's a secondary creator. Krishna does the primary creation: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and all those things. And then also the laws of material nature, the modes of material nature, the time element, and the whole the whole Mahat Tattva, the material nature. And then Brahma receives the knowledge of how to populate the universe with different species. So he is the perfect example of how to become a devotee. And it all is based on voluntary acceptance of penance or tapasya. And then and ultimately begins by following the instruction of Krishna strictly. And he was very strict about it. He meditated for hundreds and thousands, maybe millions of years before he heard the flute of Krishna. He was determined. So, therefore, Prabhupada says in a purport, so that's why he's the father of religiousness. If we read carefully this section of the Bhagavatam, we will learn what it takes to become a devotee. Now, you don't have to meditate for millions of years. No, because Lord Chaitanya has made the process much simpler in the age of Kali, the age that we're living in, this age of hypocrisy and quarrel, because this is not a very favorable age for making spiritual advancement. So therefore, he made the process much easier. You simply chant, dance in ecstasy, take prasadam to your full satisfaction, and listen carefully to classes on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, associate with devotees, and eventually engage in deity worship, and only stay in a holy place. So the temple is a holy place. So this should be the main place where we associate with devotees. So association is the most important thing in spiritual life. If you associate with non-devotees, you will eventually become a non-devotee. If you associate with good devotees, you will eventually become a very good devotee. So association is the number one thing, because if you associate with devotees, you will also chant Hare Krishna. If you chant Hare Krishna on your own and avoid the association of devotees, one day you'll say, well, why am I doing this anyway? It takes up so much time. I'll just skip this chanting and just get on with my life. Right? So it's very important to have constant association with good devotees. So therefore it says, Lord Brahma situated himself in acts of regulative principles. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, one cannot be situated in an exalted position without having undertaken a regulative life of rules and regulations. So what are those rules and regulations? We know them. No, the no's and the yeses, or the yamas and the niyamas. And so no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication. Those are the 4 pillars of sin. And always chant Hare Krishna, always attend classes of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam on a daily basis, and eat only prasadam, and come to the temple and do service. Lord Chaitanya went a little bit further. He said there are five most important things for prosecuting spiritual life successfully. 1 is associating with devotees. 2 is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita spoken by genuine devotees. And 3 is living in a holy place. That could be the holy Dham of Vrindavan, or Mathura, or Mayapur, places like that. And then, or a temple. A temple is also a holy place. And then engaging in devotional service, and especially deity worship, and of course accepting prasadam. So the process has become very simple in this age. You don't have to do severe austerities. Okay, so then it says, one cannot be situated in an exalted position without having undertaken a regulative life of rules and regulations. An unrestricted life of sense gratification is animal life. And Lord Brahma, in order to teach all concerned within the jurisdiction of his generations, taught the same principles of sense control for executing higher duties. So when it says an unrestricted life of sense gratification is animal life, well, the animals are engaged all day long in sense gratification. An easy example to understand is the cat. If you have a cat as a home pet, what does the cat do all day? Well, when you go to work, the cat will jump up on your couch, especially if it's near a window and there's some sun coming in. And instead of, being underneath the couch in the darkness, the cat goes up where there's sunlight and gets some sunbeams, some vitamin D, and snoozes while you're working, right? And then when the cat gets hungry, he goes over and eats something that you've put there in that special container for cat feed, and drinks some water. Then it passes some stool and urine also in the special container you have for doing that. And then goes around, does some nonsense in the house, maybe chasing flies or whatever. And then when it gets tired again, it goes and takes some rest. And when you come back and you pet it, it starts purring, and you think, oh, this cat loves me, So you see, the whole life of the cat is sense gratification, right? And you fall for it, It says, oh, it's purring, it's it likes, oh, today's a little standoffish, I might have done something wrong. So it's a whole relationship with the cat, whose whole life is sense gratification, right? And we learn to be a sense gratifier by having pets, because that's all they do, right? They eat, they sleep, they mate, and defend, right? And nothing else. They don't really take part in the artis and things like that. And they're not even vegetarians, right? So you have to break the rules to feed them. Okay, so therefore it says, an unrestricted life of sense gratification is animal life. And Lord Brahma, in order to teach all concerned within the jurisdiction of his generations, taught the same principles of sense control for executing higher duties. Well, when it says jurisdiction of his generations, well, we're in that jurisdiction too. We are in the Brahma Samhita, and therefore we have to take Brahma's example very seriously, because Krishna is the founder, but he's the first disciple in the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, our Sampradaya. And then it says, he desired the welfare of all as servants of God. Well, that's what he's teaching. That's what he is doing. He became a servant of Krishna, and he's following Krishna's instructions. That is real spiritual life. That is the way to understand how to go back to Godhead, by taking Krishna's instructions very seriously. And then it says, the highest life of moral principles is to become a devotee of the Lord, because a pure devotee of the Lord has all good qualities of the Lord. Now, why is that? Because we only follow Krishna's instructions. We don't mix it up and say, well, this is for Krishna and this is for me. No, we say everything for Krishna, and Krishna will take care of me. It's not that everything for Krishna and nothing for me. No, everything for Krishna, because I know Krishna will take care of me. You have to have that faith. And it's not that everything for Krishna and nothing for me. No, that's a desperate way of trying to nullify everything for Krishna, right? No, when everything is for Krishna, then Krishna takes special care of you. That's the truth. And he takes better care of you than you would take care of yourself. That's another fact. So then it says, the highest life of moral principles is to become a devotee of the Lord. So the highest morality is to become a devotee and follow Krishna's instructions. That's the highest morality. It's not mundane morality. Like, I have to become a vegan, or, we have to stop hiring white people. We should only hire people of color. All those phony moralities just complicate life. And on the one hand, you give special perks to one group of people, and you deny them to another people. So you're just making enemies, right? And someone can say, well, how about all these white people? They got all the privileges for so many years. Now we have to change the game plan here. You give a chance to the blacks and the browns. Well, okay, but you're just switching one group antagonized to another group that gets antagonized. So that is not a solution to the problem. That is the problem, right? So, therefore, the highest life of moral principles is to become a devotee of the Lord, because a pure devotee of the Lord has all the good qualities of the Lord. That means someone may have what seem to be good qualities, but because they're not a devotee of the Lord, those qualities are not really good. Now, this is hard to understand, because someone will say, well, I know people, I know an atheist, but he's a very moral person. He doesn't do this and doesn't do that, and he's immoral, right? Well, even the cat is moral. It doesn't bite the hand that feeds it, right? But that doesn't mean the cat is a pure devotee, or that the cat is moral, right? Because if you didn't feed it, it would run away or attack you, right? So, no, the devotee is not an attacker, even in the worst situation. The devotee always remains calm and peaceful, knowing well that any interaction, any negative interaction with the material world will only entangle the devotee in the cycle of birth and death. Any good or bad interaction with the material world. So, is the devotee a hermit? Is he a renunciate? Does he renounce everything? No. The devotee learns how to use everything in the service of Krishna and encourage everybody also to become closer to Krishna. He doesn't deny or reject things. The devotee learns how to use things properly in the service of Krishna, and he does not make friends and enemies. He is neutral in his relationships, but not in his relationship with Krishna, of course. And therefore, knowing Krishna's purpose, Krishna wants everyone to come back to Godhead, where they came from. So therefore, the devotee will go through many different types of tapasya to help people come back to Krishna. So it is not a negation. The life of a devotee is not one of negation. It is one of dedication. Dedicated to serving Krishna. And in order to do that, one must have control of the mind and the senses and the tongue and so forth in order to be satyam briyat priyam briyat, to speak the truth gently and in a pleasing way. Right? If you get angry, if you're vindictive, if you want revenge, how can you help people become devotees? Not possible. So you have to tolerate many things, just like Jesus Christ had to tolerate even being crucified. And what does he say ultimately? He says, "Dear Father, forgive them. They know not what they are doing." So to come to a position like that is not an easy thing. It requires a lifetime of following regulative principles, and one of those regulative principles is hearing every day Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by genuine devotees, and chanting your rounds and following all the simple rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. So, on the other hand, one who is not a devotee of the Lord, however qualified he may be, in the mundane sense of the term, cannot be qualified with any good quality worthy of the name. Just like when you come home and the dog has been sequestered in the house all day long, and then you come home and the dog's jumping up and down and his tail is wagging and he's trying to lick you because he loves you, and you think, oh, he loves me, Sometimes he licks your face, and you say, just see how much he loves me. Even my husband or my wife doesn't love me like this. But actually, when a dog licks your face, the dog is thinking, one day I will eat you too. It's not really love. He's just tasting the nice saltiness of your face and is salivating because one day he'll eat you, right? This happens. Sometimes the dog, they leave their little kid home with the dog, thinking that the dog will protect the kid. And when the parents come back, the kid is dead. The dog killed the kid. It's happened. Well, the opposite is true also. Sometimes dogs protect children, but sometimes they eat them or kill them also. So it goes both ways because it's an animal. You can't completely predict the behavior of an animal. Okay, so then the pure devotees of the Lord, like Brahma and persons in the chain of disciplic succession, do not do anything to instruct their subordinates without acting accordingly themselves. In other words, you can't teach another person unless you follow yourself the rules and regulations. You can't be skimping on or cutting corners as far as you're following and expect to be able to convince others to follow, right? We have to be what we want others to be, right? So it's a very high level of responsibility to be a devotee. So this is explained further in the Ishopanishad and these lectures. There's a book of lectures Prabhupada gave on the Ishopanishad, which is called The Laws of Nature. So, in these laws of nature, Prabhupada makes the point that in order to become an advanced devotee, one must be dhira. Dhira means a person who is very, very tolerant and self-controlled. Okay, so it says, so you have to hear this Vedic knowledge from a person who is dhira. What does that mean? If you hear from the adhira, or from those who are not self-controlled, then whatever knowledge you learn will be useless. So dhira means someone who has control of themselves, mind and body, not just the body. And that means that they have only pure desires in their mind. They don't have lusty desires. They have pure desires to serve their guru, and guru means Shiksha and Diksha gurus, and Krishna, the supreme guru and the supreme personality of Godhead. So, therefore, it says, if you learn from an adhira, a person who doesn't have real self-control, then whatever knowledge you learn will be useless. So most of the teachers in the schools are adhiras. They don't have really control of their mind or senses. They're engaged in all kinds of sense gratification. In the Ishopanishad, a student has approached his spiritual master to inquire from him, and the spiritual master is saying, this is what I have heard from authoritative sources. In other words, the spiritual master also is a devotee, has to be a devotee, and has heard the Vedic knowledge from a bona fide guru. They also have a guru, a bona fide guru, and who is simply repeating what Krishna has originally said and what all the acharyas in the Guru Parampara have said the same thing also. So he's simply, there's no room for speculation, no room for I think or maybe or imagine that or if. No, one must repeat verbatim what previous acharyas and what Krishna has said. So, therefore, this hearing process, or shruti in Sanskrit, is the way to learn. It is not based on academic study. It's based on hearing from bona fide authorities. And that's the way to have Vedic knowledge. The spiritual master is not inventing something from his own experience. He is presenting exactly what he has heard. So we have nothing to research. Everything is there. We simply have to hear from a person who is dhira, who is not agitated by the 6 urges. What are the 6 urges, right? Vacha vegam, manasakroda vegam, jiva vegam, udarapasta vegam. So speech, Vachavegam, Manasakruta Vegam. The mind, anger, Jiva Vegam, the tongue, the genital, and the stomach and the genital. So these are the 6 urges, the pushers that push us to do things. And when we control them, then this is one qualification for becoming a guru, because they can control these 6 vegans or urges or pushers, right? So it says, we simply have to hear from a person who is a dhira, very sober person, right, who has self-control, who is not agitated by the 6 urges. That is the Vedic process of gaining knowledge. And if we try to use some other process, we will remain covered by ignorance. The Upanishad says, only one who can learn the process of ignorance and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Well, this doesn't mean, he said we have to know what ignorance is. So let me go out, buy some beer, and drink it, and act like an idiot, because I got to learn what ignorance is. He said, I just read it. He just said we have to know what ignorance is. No, that's not the way you learn ignorance. Because if you read the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, it explains what ignorance is, and what real knowledge is, and what pure devotional service is. So the best way to understand things is by hearing and understanding. Now, some people need to hear, but they have to also see to understand. That's second class. And then third class is they hear, they see, but they have to do in order to understand. That's third class. And then fourth and fifth and sixth class is they see, they hear, they see, they do, and they keep doing. That is 4th, 5th, 6th, 10th, 1000th class, low class, right? So best is hearing and understanding. And that's what happens in the class, in Bhagavad Gita class, Srimad Bhagavatam. We hear and we understand both what to do and what not to do, right? And that's the best top level of receiving this Vedic knowledge. So, therefore, it says, people do not understand what immortality is. They think it is a mythological idea. They are proud of their advancement of knowledge, mundane knowledge, but there are many things they do not know, nor can they ever know them by their modern system of experimentation. Wow, so this is a fact. The whole scientific process in modern times is based on experimentation and finding repeated models or repeated occurrences, and then making a theory based on that that's somewhat predictable. So if you want real knowledge, you should take knowledge from the literature known as the Vedas. The word Veda means knowledge. Part of the Vedas are the 108 Upanishads, out of which 11 are very important. Of those 11, the Ishopanishad stands first in the word Upanishad. In the word Upanishad, Upa means near. So the knowledge in the Ishopanishad will take you nearer to Krishna. So here's the Ishopanishad. And what is said in the Ishopanishad? We'll look at mantra 10. It says there, in the modern society, even a boy thinks himself self-sufficient and pays no respect to elderly men. Due to the wrong type of education being imparted in our universities, boys all over the world are giving their elders headaches. Thus, Sri Upanishad very strongly warns that the culture of ignorance is different from that of knowledge. The universities are, so to speak, centers of ignorance only. Consequently, scientists are busy discovering lethal weapons to wipe out the existence of other countries. University students today are not given instructions in the regulative principles of brahmacharya, celibate student life, nor do they have any faith in any scriptural injunctions. Religious principles are taught for the sake of name and fame only, and not for the sake of practical action. Thus, there is animosity, not only in social and political fields, but in the field of religion as well. Nationalism is developed in different parts of the world due to the cultivation of ignorance by the general people. No one considers that this tiny earth is just a lump of matter floating in immeasurable space, along with many other lumps. In comparison to the vastness of space, these material lumps are like dust particles in the air. Because God has kindly made these lumps of matter complete in themselves, they are perfectly equipped with all necessities for floating in space. The drivers of our spaceships may be very proud of their achievements, but they do not consider the supreme driver of these greater, more gigantic spaceships called planets. There are innumerable suns and innumerable planetary systems also. As infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, we small creatures are trying to dominate these unlimited planets. Thus we take repeated birth and death and are generally frustrated by old age and disease. Ishopanishad, very profound little book, only 18 mantras. The Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 mantras, right? This is only 18 mantras, but if you read this one book carefully and reread it and reread it and reread it, you'll understand the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness. See? That's how powerful a little book like this is. Or this little book also, the Bhagavad Gita. If you read and reread and hear it, hearing it is much more effective for understanding than simply reading it. People read so many books, and now they have speed reading also, you know. They think they understand something. They don't understand anything, right? Okay, so it says, the conclusion is, then it says, when conditioned souls commit mistakes, become illusioned, and cheat. How do they cheat? When one who does not understand the Bhagavad Gita writes a commentary on it, he is cheating the innocent public. Someone has a title as a scholar, so he takes advantage of the popularity of the Bhagavad Gita and writes a commentary. Such so-called scholars claim that anyone can give his own opinion, but in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that only his devotee can understand the Gita. So these so-called scholars are cheating. So where does Krishna say that only his devotee can understand? 10th chapter, 10th verse, and 11th chapter, 54th and 55th verse of Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion is that if you want genuine spiritual knowledge, you have to approach a bona fide spiritual master who has realized the absolute truth. Otherwise, you will remain in darkness. You cannot think, oh, I may or may not accept a spiritual master. In any case, there are books that I can learn from. No. The Vedic injunction is tadviganartam sagurum iva gachet. The word gachet means one must go to a bona fide spiritual master. Not that one may or may not go. To understand transcendental knowledge, one must go to a spiritual master. That is the Vedic injunction. You must know two things. What is Maya, illusion, and what is Krishna? Then your knowledge is perfect. Of course, Krishna is so nice that if you somehow or other fully surrender to him, all your searching for knowledge will be finished. So this is a fact that today kids are not taught these two things. What are they? What is Maya or illusion, and what is Krishna or truth? Then your knowledge is perfect. If they only learn one side, what is Maya, then they're never going to be able to understand Krishna consciousness. And they'll be making many mistakes in their life. So they're only taught the one side, what is Maya. They're not taught what is Krishna. Then it says, of course, Krishna is so nice that if you somehow or other fully surrender to him, all your searching for knowledge is perfect. Of course, Krishna is so nice that if you somehow or other fully surrender to him, all your searching for knowledge will be finished. Not only you will know what Krishna is, but you will automatically learn what Maya is. Krishna will give you intelligence from within. So, by the mercy of both the spiritual master and Krishna, one takes up devotional service. How is that? Their mercy runs on parallel lines. If you have not yet found a spiritual master but are sincere, Krishna will direct you to a bona fide spiritual master. And if you get a bona fide spiritual master, he will take you to Krishna. Krishna is always sitting in your heart as the Chaita Guru, the spiritual master within. It is that Chaita Guru who manifests himself externally as the spiritual master. Therefore, the spiritual master is the direct representative of Krishna. The Ishopanishad says we should learn what vidya, or knowledge, and avidya, ignorance, are. Avidya is ignorance under the guise of materialistic knowledge. Whoa. So that's like having a bottle and labeling it pure nectar, but actually it's arsenic, pure poison. So an unwitting person says, oh, nectar, and they open it up and drink it real quick, and they die very quick also. So that's why it says in modern schools, they're dressing their so-called knowledge, but it's actually a dress of ignorance. So they put a pretty dress on the ignorance. Right? The more you become implicated in material knowledge, the less you can understand Krishna consciousness. Those who are advanced in material knowledge think, what use is this Krishna consciousness movement? They have no attraction for spiritual knowledge. They are too absorbed in avidya, or ignorance. Some Indian boys reject the spiritual culture of India and come to the West to learn technology. When they see that I have introduced in the West the things they rejected in India, they are surprised. One reason I came to the West is that modern India has rejected spiritual knowledge. Today, Indians think that if they can imitate Western technology, they will be happy. This is Maya. They do not see that those who are 300 times more technologically advanced than the Indians are not happy. India will not be able to equal America or European technology for at least 300 years because the Western countries have been developing technology for a very long time. But since the time of creation, Indian culture has been a spiritual culture. Vidya, or knowledge, or genuine spiritual knowledge, does not depend on technology. Srila Vyasadeva is the original guru of Vedic knowledge. How was he living? In a cottage in Badarika Ashram. But just see his knowledge. He wrote so many Puranas, including the Srimad Bhagavatam. He also wrote the Vedanta Sutra and the Mahabharata. If you study every single verse written by Vyasadeva, it would take your whole lifetime. The Srimad Bhagavatam alone has no less than 18,000 verses, and each verse is so full of meaning that it would take a whole lifetime to fully understand it. This is Vedic culture. So we see where Prabhupada's emphasis is, that our kids should be trained, right, as from as early as possible in Vedic knowledge and in hearing and repeating and engaging in actual devotional service, because that is the purpose of the hearing and reading. It's to engage in devotional service, because devotional service is the connection to Krishna. And the devotional service should always be under the tutelage of the bona fide guru. Okay, so we will stop right there. Are there any questions? So it says, the pure devotees of the Lord, like Brahma and persons in the chain of disciplic succession, do not do anything to instruct their subordinates without acting accordingly themselves. In other words, to be a teacher, you have to be a follower of Krishna consciousness. Any questions?
Well, you mentioned about animals are hard to predict, but it seems like it's the humans that are even harder to predict.
Well, most humans are animals. They're living like animals. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes, you have an uncle, or a brother or a relative, and they come and stay in your house and they molest your kid. I hope it never happens to you, but it's happened a lot. the biggest number of molesters are family members or relatives or neighbors or friends. Those are the ones that are most often molest little kids because they have access to them. Right? Then there are the people that kidnap kids, But the majority of the molesters are people who are known, either their family members or their neighbors or their friends. So, beware of who comes in your house. And then, there are there are mental molesters. Those are the people on the television and the internet. They also come into your house. So beware. They're even more dangerous because they dominate the kid's brain with their nonsense. Yeah. Okay, so time for Guru Puja. Haribol. You want to lead the Guru Puja?
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandha Muhi Savadhana Made
Bandha Muhi Savadhana Made
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai He Bhavatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya
Arana Kori Ho Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati Rane Rati Aise Utama Gati Je Prasade Pure Sarva Asha चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जायते वेदे गाय जहाँ रचरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आधम जनारा बंधु लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया हे बेजास घुषुक त्रिभुवाना प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना जयो प्रभुपदा जयो प्रभुपदा जयो प्रभुपदा जयो प्रभुपदा नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चाता देशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada. Jai Shila Prabhupada ki jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great reverence. By his can across the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotee. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take the shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.